The tech campus looked like any other in the district. Modern glass architecture, startup branding, employees arriving with coffee cups and messenger bags, security badges, visitor parking. Everything signaled legitimate business operations in the heart of the innovation corridor. The company called itself a software development firm specializing in network security solutions. They had a professional website, client testimonials, job postings, conference sponsorships. Their CEO gave interviews about cybersecurity trends and digital transformation. On the surface, they appeared to be exactly what they claimed, a mid-sized tech company competing in the crowded security software market. But federal investigators had been tracking them for 8 months. It started with unusual financial patterns. The company's revenue didn't match their declared client base. Payments arrived from overseas accounts with no corresponding contracts or service agreements. Their employee count seemed inconsistent. Hiring announcements that didn't match actual staffing levels, turnover that looked normal on paper but had no supporting documentation. Then came the breakthrough. A routine investigation into ransomware attacks affecting healthcare systems across multiple states traced the malware back to infrastructure connected to the company's network. Not directly. The connections were obscured through proxy servers and encrypted channels, but the digital fingerprints were there. Specific code signatures, development patterns, timestamps that aligned with the company's operational hours. The FBI's cyber division began deeper surveillance. Network traffic analysis showed massive data flows during overnight hours when a normal development shop would have minimal activity. Encrypted communications using protocols that suggested coordination rather than standard business operations. Server farms consuming power levels inconsistent with the company's stated operations. Physical surveillance added more concerns. Employees entered the building, but patterns were wrong. Some arrived at standard business hours and left normally. Others entered late at night and weren't seen leaving for days. Delivery trucks brought food and supplies in quantities that exceeded what the visible staff would require. Window coverings on certain floors blocked all exterior visibility. The building had security measures beyond industry standards. Biometric access, reinforced doors, surveillance cameras covering every entrance and approach. Immigration investigators cross-referenced the company's work visa applications against entry records. 12 individuals sponsored for high-skilled technical positions had entered the country but had never been seen at the company's public facilities. No social media presence. No credit card activity. No driver's licenses. No apartment leases. They had entered the United States legally and then vanished from all normal tracking systems. The connection came from an unexpected source. A family member of one of the missing visa holders filed a missing person report. Her brother had accepted a software development position, arrived in the country 6 months earlier, and then contact stopped. Initial emails said he was busy, working long hours, settling in. Then nothing. No calls, no messages, no responses. The family became worried but had no way to reach him directly. The company claimed he had resigned and left no forwarding information. Federal agents interviewed the family. They had his employment contract, his visa documentation, screenshots of his early messages describing the work environment. Then silence. The timeline aligned with other missing visa holders. All had technical expertise, programming, network engineering, database architecture. All had arrived, communicated briefly, then disappeared from contact. The investigation escalated. If the company was involved in cybercrime, the missing employees could be victims or accomplices. If they were being held against their will, it was kidnapping and forced labor. If they were willing participants, it was conspiracy. Either way, the operation needed to be stopped before more damage occurred. The tactical briefing took place in a secure facility. Multiple agencies coordinated: FBI Cybercrimes Division, Immigration Enforcement, local SWAT teams. The target was the tech campus. The mission was to execute a federal warrant for cyber fraud, computer crimes, and intelligence indicated approximately 30 people inside the facility at the time of the planned raid. Some were legitimate employees, administrative staff, a few actual developers working on real projects to maintain the company's cover. Others were unknown. The building had 3 floors. Ground level was public-facing, reception area, conference rooms, showcase development space. Second floor was operational, workstations, server rooms, management offices. Third floor was unknown. Security camera footage showed access was restricted. Only certain individuals entered. Always used. The warrant was executed at dawn. 4 SWAT teams. Coordinated entry at multiple access points. The building was isolated. Power to the neighborhood briefly interrupted to prevent destruction of digital evidence, then restored with the facility on backup generators controlled by the tactical teams. Communication jamming prevented any signals from leaving the building. The entry was swift. Main entrance breached. Side doors secured. Roof access controlled. Within 90 seconds, the ground floor was secured. Administrative staff were detained without incident. They seemed genuinely surprised, claiming ignorance of any criminal activity. The public-facing areas looked exactly as expected: modern office space, development equipment, standard tech company infrastructure. The second floor was different. The door at the top of the stairs was reinforced steel with electronic locks. The tactical team bypassed the system using override codes provided by the building's original security contractor. Inside, the space was divided into workstation pods. Multiple high-end computers at each station. Servers humming in climate-controlled rooms, but the atmosphere was wrong. No personal items. No coffee mugs or family photos. No signs of the casual culture that defined tech workplaces. Everything was sterile, controlled, monitored. 6 people were at workstations when the entry team arrived. All appeared startled but didn't flee. They raised their hands immediately. None spoke English fluently. When addressed in various languages, they responded with visible relief mixed with fear. They weren't running because they couldn't. This wasn't their choice to be there. The lead tactical officer asked the critical question. "Is anyone else in the building?" One of the detained individuals, a young man in his late 20s, nodded. "Upstairs. 3rd floor. More people. Locked in. Can't leave." The 3rd floor access was more secure. Biometric scanner. Reinforced door with multiple locking points. Camera monitoring the entrance. The tactical team didn't wait for technical bypass. They used a hydraulic breaching tool. The door resisted, but the pressure was relentless. Locks failed. The door gave way. Beyond was a corridor, different from the floors below. No windows. Industrial lighting. Doors on both sides. The first door was locked from the outside. Simple bolt mechanism. The team slid it open. Inside was a dormitory setup. Bunk beds. 12 of them. Occupied. People rising from sleep, startled by the sudden intrusion. Men and women. Ages ranging from early 20s to late 30s. All appeared confused, frightened, uncertain whether this was rescue or punishment. A tactical officer spoke in English, then Spanish, then Mandarin. "We're police. Federal agents. You're safe. Is everyone here okay? Is anyone hurt?" A woman responded in broken English. We work here. We can't leave. They have our documents. Our families. They said our families." The team documented everyone present. 12 people in the dormitory room. All matched descriptions of missing visa holders. All had been recruited for legitimate tech positions. All had arrived in the country legally. All had been confined to this facility and forced to work on projects they didn't fully understand. The second room was a workshop. Computer equipment. Development stations. Whiteboards covered in code diagrams and network architecture sketches. This was where the actual work happened. The ransomware development. the malware deployment, the infrastructure for coordinating cyber attacks. The third room was storage. Passports, identity documents, visa paperwork, all confiscated from the workers. Without these, they couldn't travel, couldn't prove legal status, couldn't leave even if they escaped the physical facility. The fourth room was management. Computers, financial records, communication systems, evidence of the entire operation, client lists, criminal organizations paying for custom malware, attack schedules, revenue tracking. The operation had generated millions over 2 years. By the time the facility was fully secured, the count was clear. 18 people held on the third floor, 6 working under duress on the second floor. 24 individuals total, all visa holders recruited for technical expertise, all confined and forced to develop cyber attack tools. The investigation expanded immediately. The company's financial systems were seized. Servers were isolated and preserved. The building was declared a crime scene. Additional federal agents arrived to process evidence and interview the victims. The stories were consistent. Recruited through legitimate channels, offered positions with competitive salaries and visa sponsorship, arrived in the United States expecting normal employment, met at the airport by company representatives, taken to the facility, told their documents needed to be held for processing, given initial work assignments. Then the truth emerged. Their families back home were being monitored. Phone calls were recorded. Social media was tracked. They were told that any attempt to leave, any contact with authorities, any failure to cooperate would result in consequences for their families. Deportation was threatened. Criminal charges for visa fraud. Harm to relatives. They worked long hours developing malware, creating attack infrastructure, testing ransomware variants. They were told the work was for government clients, for security research, for legitimate purposes. But they knew the truth. The attacks they helped create were being used against hospitals, schools, businesses. People were being harmed. Systems were being destroyed. Some had been there for 6 months, others for over a year. They lived in the dormitory room. Meals were provided. They had no freedom to leave the facility. No communication with the outside world except monitored calls to family where they had to say everything was fine. The company's leadership was identified through the financial records. The CEO wasn't the face from interviews and conferences. A person was hired talent, paid to maintain the legitimate front. The actual operators were a network of individuals coordinating from multiple locations. Some were in the building when the raid occurred. Others were abroad. International cooperation would be required to bring everyone to justice. 4 individuals were arrested on site. The CEO replacement. 2 technical managers who directly supervised the forced labor. A security coordinator who controlled access and monitored the workers. All were taken into custody without resistance. The building was secured. The victims were transported to a secure location for medical evaluation, legal consultation, and witness protection. The digital evidence was overwhelming. Communications showing coordination with criminal organizations. Financial records documenting payments for ransomware attacks. Development logs proving the malware originated from the forced labor operation. Attack schedules showing the scope, over 300 incidents across 7 countries in 18 months. Federal prosecutors moved aggressively. The arrested individuals were charged with conspiracy, computer fraud, money laundering, human trafficking, and forced labor. The evidence was comprehensive. The case was built not just on digital forensics but on witness testimony from the freed workers. The victims were offered extensive support. Immigration attorneys ensured their visa status was protected. They had been brought to the country legally and were victims of crime. Their legal presence was secure. Medical care addressed health concerns from months of confinement and stress. Trauma counselors helped process the psychological impact of forced labor and threats against families. International coordination helped protect their families. Law enforcement in their home countries was notified. protective measures were put in place. The threats that had kept the workers compliant were neutralized. Some chose to remain in the United States, pursuing legal paths to permanent residence. Others preferred to return home once they were assured of safety. All were given time to make informed decisions without pressure. The facility was thoroughly analyzed. The cybercrime infrastructure was dismantled. The malware development was stopped. Law enforcement gained access to the attack tools, allowing them to create defenses and help victims recover from previous attacks. The case generated international attention. A legitimate-appearing tech company hiding a forced labor operation. Visa holders recruited legally, then trapped in cyber slavery. The sophistication of the operation, maintaining a public front while running criminal activities on secured floors of the same building. The company's clients, the organizations that had purchased malware and attack tools, became targets of their own investigations. The network extended across multiple countries. Some clients were nation-state actors, others were criminal syndicates. The evidence seized in the raid provided leads to dozens of ongoing criminal operations. But the immediate victory was the rescue. 24 people freed from forced labor, 18 held in dormitory confinement, 6 working under constant surveillance and threats, all brought to the United States with promises of opportunity and trapped in a system designed to exploit their skills and vulnerability. The raid had been planned to investigate cyber fraud. The expectation was criminal infrastructure, possibly willing participants in a hacking operation. Instead, the tactical teams found a prison, a facility where technical expertise was extracted through coercion, where legal information became the mechanism for involuntary servitude, where the threat of deportation and harm to families enforced compliance. The discovery changed how federal agencies approached tech company investigations. Legitimate business fronts became subject to deeper scrutiny. Visa sponsorships were monitored more carefully. Unusual employee patterns triggered reviews. The case became a blueprint for identifying forced labor operations hidden within seemingly legitimate industries. The tech campus still operates, but under new ownership. The building was sold, renovated, and now houses actual software development companies. Security measures were normalized. The third-floor dormitory was converted to standard office space. Nothing visible remains of its previous purpose. But for the 24 people found there on that morning, the memory is permanent. The arrival in a new country full of hope. The realization that hope was a trap. The months of forced labor under threat of harm to loved ones. The isolation from the outside world. The fear that escape was impossible. And then the sound of doors being breached. Tactical teams entering. The confusion of whether this was another threat or actual rescue. The moment of realization that it was over. That the threats were empty now. That they were free. The SWAT teams had entered expecting a cyber fraud bust. Computer crimes. Maybe willing participants in criminal hacking. They found victims. People trafficked legally through immigration systems and then imprisoned in a high-tech facility disguised as a startup campus. The operation was sophisticated. The front was convincing. The security was extensive. But the fundamental crime was simple. People forced to work against their will, held through threats and document confiscation, exploited for technical skills while being denied basic freedom. The raid stopped the malware production. 24 people were freed. The criminal network was disrupted. But the discovery revealed a broader pattern. How many other tech companies operated similar schemes? How many visa holders were trapped in forced labor situations, unable to seek help because their legal status was held as leverage against them? The investigation continued. The freed workers provided information about the recruitment process, how they were targeted, what promises were made, how the system trapped them. Their testimony helped identify other potential operations, other companies, other facilities. Federal task forces began systematic reviews of tech industry visa sponsorships, looking for patterns. companies with high visa applications but low visible staffing, facilities with security beyond industry norms, financial flows inconsistent with declared business models. The case prompted legislative attention. Visa protections for workers who report forced labor, stronger enforcement of employment conditions, requirements for companies to demonstrate legitimate operations before receiving visa sponsorship authority. But the immediate impact was 24 lives saved. 24 people who had been working on the third floor of a tech campus, producing malware that attacked hospitals and schools and businesses, doing so not by choice but under threats to themselves and their families. The tactical teams had breached the doors, secured the facility, freed the prisoners, and in doing so, stopped a cyber operation that had caused millions in damages and put dozens of people in danger of continued exploitation. The raid was executed perfectly. The facility was secured. The evidence was preserved. The victims were protected. But none of the planning had anticipated the scope. An entire floor converted to dormitory confinement. 18 people living in locked rooms. 6 more working under surveillance. 24 individuals whose expertise had been weaponized against their will. It was a reminder that modern slavery wears many faces. Sometimes it's hidden in warehouses, sometimes it's concealed in agricultural operations, and sometimes it operates in glass office buildings with modern architecture and startup branding, where the chains are digital and the prison is a floor most people never see. The tech campus raid freed 24 people. The expanded investigation would find more. The malware operation was stopped. The criminal network was disrupted. And the workers who had been forced to build tools of digital destruction were finally, after months of captivity, allowed to go free.